Alrighty, y'all. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. If you don't know me, my name is Jake, and right now I'm gonna do probably the most important stream I will ever do in my life. So if you didn't know, there have been some accusations levied against one Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now, yeah, whatever. Now, if you somehow aren't aware, Neil deGrasse Tyson's a pretty influential figure in the science community at the moment. Probably the most. And he was very well respected and revered for a long time. So, a lot of people were very shocked to hear these accusations. Um, this isn't the first time he's been accused, though. Someone did accuse him in 2014. But anyway, what's going on right now is he is being attacked relentlessly by the media because two more incidents have cropped up. And, of course, being a responsible adult, you need to respond to accusations like these. My roommate's trying to mess with me right now. I'm live, by the way.
You're live? You're going
Yeah.
live?
Yeah, I'm doing it live.
You're doing it live?
Yeah, I think I'm live. Yeah, I'm live. So, being a vehement woman respecter, I decided it is my duty to read Neil deGrasse Tyson's official response to these allegations and to sort of break down what in this response is correct, what is incorrect, what I would and wouldn't do, maybe how it comes across. And just so you guys know, everything I'm about to say is total conjecture. I don't know what happened at any of these moments, and I doubt I ever will know the full truth. But this is just my interpretation of these posts alone. I didn't read actually their official allegations, like the official statement where they accused him. I've only read some headlines and this post. And just based off that, I have a lot to say. But let's just stop dilly-dallying around and get right into it. Hang on. I'm going to open up my chat on my phone. Alright, here we are. So, here it's titled On Being Accused. What an apt title. Gotta give him credit where it's due. That is a great way to title your response to being accused. Can't lie. I guess I'm just gonna read it off in every paragraph. I'm gonna stop and talk about it. He says, for a variety of reasons, most justified, some unjustified, men accused of sexual impropriety in today's Me Too climate are presumed to be guilty by the court of public opinion. Emotions bypass due process, people choose sides, and the social media wars begin. This is just, he's sort of talking about how people very much favor, when accusations like this go out, they favor the woman's position. At least that's what he seems to be asserting here. Some people disagree with that. Some people might think that's a correct position to take. But if you're in a situation where you're being accused of this stuff, and you're trying to take a defensive approach, it's kind of weird to attack the current climate as if that's the reason you're being accused. Like, he says most justified, some unjustified. He's sort of implying with his wording here that it's not proper that men are sort of assumed guilty unless they're proven innocent. The opposite of how it should be. It seems like he's saying that's wrong, but then he's saying most of the reasons why that's true are justified. So it's just a little bit of a weird, like, wishy-washy sort of way to begin your post. In any claim, evidence matters. Evidence always matters. But what happens when it's just one person's word against another's, and the stories don't agree? That's when people tend to pass judgment on who is more credible than whom. And that's when an impartial investigation can best serve the truth. and would have my full cooperation to do so. Now, I'm gonna give Neil deGrasse Tyson the credit he deserves. This is probably the best part of the entire response. Like, he basically just says, go ahead, investigate me. You're not gonna find anything. Perfect. Like, if I would respond, I would say something similar if I had to respond to allegations like these. Um, and yeah, he's talking about how, you know, evidence would be the key factor if it weren't for the fact that in this particular genre of cases, the evidence is usually just one person testifying against another. And unfortunately, one of the two people involved in this usually happens to be the accused, so you kind of weigh their story differently than the accuser, and it causes this, you know, it's hard to find justice in situations like this. Um, but yeah, saying, you know, bring on the investigation, I'm ready, that's perfect. I like that. I've recently been publicly accused of sexual misconduct. These accusations have received a fair amount of press in the past 48 hours, unaccompanied by my reactions. In many cases, it's not the media's fault. I decline comment on the grounds that serious accusations should not be agitated in the press. But I clearly cannot continue to stay silent, so below I offer my account of each accusation. So this is kind of weird. He says that he declined comment on the grounds that serious accusations should not be agitated in the press. So, what he's implying here is that he needs to sort of tell his side of the story in the exact way that he wants to, which, you know, if you just want to give a quick comment to the press, basically summarizing this whole post, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I get what he's saying, you know. It's a serious accusation, and if you can't fully explain yourself, which you know that, like, journalists these days aren't going to take into account the context in which you said some words, they're just going to print whatever the hell they want, then, you know, the press isn't really reliable. That's the press's fault. That's not really Neil's fault in this case. So I don't really have a problem with this. He acknowledges the need to respond, which I'll get to that in a bit, but like he's kind of making an assumption here that isn't really justified. Um, but anyway, with that out of the way, let's get to the juicy stuff. Here's the 2009 incident. I am asked by thousands of people per year to take pictures with them. A flattering, time-consuming, but delightful chore. As many in my fan base can attest, I get almost giddy if I notice you're wearing cosmic bling, clothing or jewelry or tattoos that portray the universe either scientifically or artistically, and I make it a priority to point out these adornments for the photograph. So, already, we know exactly where this is going. He's saying he gets almost giddy, like a child. He is going to try to use his childlike excitement when talking about the planets to justify some whack shit he did. Like, that is the only reason to preface this story with this paragraph. And, you know, it works. You know, people kind of give you the benefit of the doubt if they think you're really passionate about something and it's just a misunderstanding. But I'm gonna, you know, read the rest and you'll understand what I mean. A colleague at a well-attended after-conference social gathering came up to me to ask for a photograph. She was wearing a sleeveless dress with a tattooed solar system extending up her arm. And while I don't explicitly remember searching for Pluto at the top of her shoulder, it is surely something I would have done in that situation. As we all know, I have professional history with the demotion of Pluto, which had occurred officially just 3 years earlier. So whether people include it or not in their tattoos is of great interest to me. I was reported to have groped her by searching up her dress, when this was simply a search under the covered part of her shoulder of the sleeveless dress. So basically what happened, if you didn't understand that for whatever reason, is he sort of looked around. She was wearing a sleeveless dress. you know how open women must already feel wearing such a thing? And then he's like, let me poke around further. And here's the thing. He's an adult, man. Like, if you're 13 years old, fine, you know. Maybe you accidentally didn't really consider what you were doing to the other person. He's an adult professional man. He didn't even ask her, first of all, literally just ask her if Pluto is on the tattoo. That's, step one. But okay, maybe if you don't consider that, be like, okay, oh, can I look for Pluto on your shoulder tattoo? Like, is it there? Communicate with her so that these misunderstandings don't happen. I really can't imagine Neil deGrasse Tyson himself couldn't figure this out. And here's the thing. He specifically remembers that she was wearing a sleeveless dress. This is a detail that I certainly wouldn't commit to memory unless specifically took note of the incident in my mind. And it's been 9 years since then. The fact that he was able to procure this detail indicates to me that he's thought about it at least a couple of times in the intervening, years. And he didn't look back at this a single time and say, hey, maybe this wasn't the right course of action to take. Maybe I should have, just freaking asked her if Pluto was on the tattoo instead of, scanning her body all creepily. Like, it didn't even cross his mind in any of the times that he thought back to this incident. I'm not sure I buy this. I only just learned 9 years after that she thought this behavior creepy. That was never my intent, and I'm deeply sorry to have made her feel that way. Had I been told of her discomfort in the moment, I would have offered the same apology eagerly and on the spot. In my mind's eye, I'm a friendly and accessible guy, but going forward, I can surely be more sensitive to people's personal space, even in the midst of my planetary enthusiasm. So basically, he's trying to write this off as, oh, I'm such a dork, damn, I was so excited about the planets that I didn't even consider that I was, sexually touching a woman in front of me in the ethereal plane. Wow, how silly of me. Well, she should have told me she was uncomfortable in the moment. That's basically what he's saying here. He doesn't put it in such a, blatant way, but it's kind of he's putting the burden on her to, tell him that she's uncomfortable so that he can apologize. When if you just think back to the moment that happened 2 seconds ago and you realize, oh, I got my hands all over this woman and searched not underneath her dress, but like I sort of peeled off some of the fabric and looked for Pluto. Maybe that wasn't the most appropriate, the thing I just did 2 seconds ago. I should probably apologize and just explain that I'm really enthused about the planets. As an adult, I feel like that's something that would certainly come to mind. And Neil deGrasse Tyson has one of the most brilliant minds in the modern era, at least according to lay people. So he, of all people, doesn't understand that he should probably realize what the consequences of his actions are. Like, I don't know. It's dicey to me that he didn't understand what he was doing. If not, like, in the moment, then at least immediately after, or sometime in the past 9 years. Maybe after, like, a month or so, you're like, alright, the time's passed, she's not worried about it. But, like, I don't know, it just seems odd to me that he didn't even think to apologize or say anything, like, explain himself. And I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, like, maybe he just, in the moment, didn't realize what he was doing was wrong, but shortly after, you had to understand that what you're doing is maybe not the most correct course of action to take. You're gonna notice a pattern with that. Anyway, here's the summer 2018 incident. While filming this past summer, I had a female production assistant assigned to me to ensure, among her countless tasks, that every ounce of my energy was efficiently allocated to the production needs of the show. As part of this, she was also my driver to and from the studio, ensuring that I arrive on time.
Scandalous.
Yeah, not really yet. In the car, we would review details of the shoot, and she would help me anticipate parts of the shoot to come. Across the many weeks of shooting, she and I spent upwards of 100 hours in one-on-one conversation. Wow. That's enough for 100 podcast episodes. We became so friendly that we talked about all manner of subjects, even social personal ones like the care of aging parents, sibling relationships, life in high school and college, hometown hobbies, race, gender, and so forth. We also discussed less personal topics in abundance, like rock lyrics, favorite songs in various musical genres, concert experiences, etc. And we also talked about food. I'm kind of a foodie, and her fiancé was a chef. In short, we had a fun, talkative friendship. Now, take note of the fact that she has a fiancé here. It's going to come in useful later. She is a talented, warm, and friendly person. Excellent traits for morale in a high-pressure production. I'm going to, keep this at the bottom so you guys don't read ahead. Practically everyone she knows on set gets a daily welcome hug from her. I expressly rejected each hug offered frequently during the production, but in its place, I offered a handshake, and on a few occasions, clumsily declared, "If I hug you, I might just want more." My intent was to express restrained but genuine affection. Alright, here's where it all breaks down. If I hug you, I might just want more. Imagine saying that to someone and not immediately thinking, wow, that came off creepy. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. And he sort of says his intent. It doesn't matter what his intent was. Like, realize as the words are leaving your mouth, if I hug you, I might just want more. Imagine how that comes off. Especially if you're a man talking to a woman. Now, here's the thing. I sometimes slip up with my words. I sometimes say things and they come out a little weird. It's just a part of communicating. Sometimes things go wrong. What gets me is he says he stated this on a few occasions. That means he said this. The words left his mouth, hung in the air for a bit, hit the woman's ear, and anyone else in the general vicinity. He repeated it back to himself in his mind's eye. And he didn't even think, oh hey, maybe I shouldn't say this ever again. He repeated this action. He said this multiple times. Like, what on earth are you doing, Neil? You can't just say something like this. Come on. I know you're better than this. If I hug you, I might just want more. Like, the first 2 times, sometime in there, you would think that maybe you would understand what this sounds like. But whatever. Also, I really appreciate that he says practically everyone she knows on set gets a daily welcome hug from her. And then he's like, oh, look at me, I'm fancy Neil deGrasse Tyson, ever the gentleman. I'm gonna expressly reject every hug. But in its place, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna shake her hand, and then while shaking her hand, he just looks deep into her eyes and is like, if I hug you, I might just want more. Like, in the creepiest possible way. That's what I'm imagining. And I know I'm taking this too far, but, like, it's crazy to me that this could even happen to a human being. Let's continue on with this. That's just amazing. In the final week of shooting, with just a few days left, as a capstone of our friendship, I invited her to wine and cheese at my place upon dropping me off from work. No pressure. I serve wine and cheese often to visitors, and I even alerted her that others from the production were gathering elsewhere that evening, so she could just drop me off and head straight there or anywhere elsewhere. She freely chose to come by for wine and cheese, and I was delighted. In the car, we had started a long conversation that could continue unabated. Production days are long. We arrived late, but she was on her way home 2 hours later. So, did you catch this? She left after 2 hours. Um, Keep this in mind. Not much to say about this. He basically, he says no pressure. There's always some pressure, but like I guess he can't really control that. So nothing I can accuse Neil of here, unfortunately. I don't think he was wrong in anything he did. He was just inviting a friend over for wine and cheese, which, you know, who wouldn't want to be wined and cheesed by Neil deGrasse Tyson himself? I can't imagine a greater privilege. What a weird combination, though. Just wine and cheese. There's nothing. There's nothing in your stomach really for the alcohol to like not get right into your whatever. I'm taking this too far. Afterwards, she came into my office to tell me. You let that one slide. Afterwards, she came into my office to tell me she was creeped out by the wine and cheese evening. She viewed the invite as an attempt to seduce her, even though she sat across the wine and cheese table from me, and all conversation had been in the same vein as all other conversations we ever had. I have a little qualm with this collection of two paragraphs. There is such a jump here. It says, just normal wine and cheese conversations. First of all, she left after 2 hours, which, if you're having an interesting conversation, I don't know if 2 hours is long to stay or short. Maybe they have busy schedules, whatever. It just seems a little fishy to me. Like, she might have stayed a little longer, perhaps. But, whatever. As he says, production days are long. It was probably late already. Okay, she stays for 2 hours. That's fine. But, in combination, he also says that afterwards she came to tell me she was creeped out by the wine and cheese evening. Something doesn't add up here. Neil is insisting that this is just a normal conversation he had with her over wine and cheese. She interpreted this as an attempt to seduce her. And he says even though she sat across the wine and cheese table from me, as if this, like, somehow has anything... Like, if you were trying to seduce her, would she not sit across the wine and cheese table from you? Like, I don't get that. And he says all conversation we had been in the same vein as all other... Yeah. So, basically, he's saying just a normal conversation with her. I don't know why she was creeped out by the wine and cheese evening. But, I don't know. I just feel like people aren't that irrational. Like, nothing... I don't think something would click so suddenly within a human to suddenly be creeped out by someone you've considered a friend for so long. I feel like Neil maybe accidentally said something creepy that he's not giving out, and maybe he didn't even, obviously he's been so oblivious that he's being such a creep this whole time. Maybe he said something that was sort of creepy and he didn't take mental note of it, so he didn't note it here. That would be my guess. That's why she's interpreting this as an attempt to seduce her, and that is why this whole accusation is occurring. He accidentally did something creepy and he doesn't even realize. That's just my best guess, of course. I'm not trying to say that's definitely what happened, but that's all that makes sense, because it's such a jump from we have a perfectly fine friendship to she thought wine and cheese night was really creepy with me. It doesn't add up that someone would make that jump on their own. I think Neil did something here that he's not telling us. Further, I never touched her until I shook her hand upon departure. On that occasion, I had offered a special handshake, one I learned from a native elder on reservation land at the edge of the Grand Canyon. You extend your thumb forward during the handshake to feel the other person's vital spirit energy, the pulse. I've never forgotten that handshake, and I save it in appreciation of people with whom I develop new friendship. And here the case gets cracked wide open. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened, actually. This is just on the fly. I just realized this is probably what happened. So Neil, gets into very personal topics with her. Maybe she's fine with it. Maybe she's a little uncomfortable, but it's not blatant enough for Neil to notice because he's very oblivious to how creepy he is. So then she tries to leave, and he's like, hey, shake my hand. Handshake. And then he jabs her thumb into her palm without her permission, without telling her what the fuck is going on. And she's like, what the hell? Did he just jab his thumb into my palm? What is this? No wonder she was creeped out by that night. I think we're on the cusp of understanding exactly what went down here. But yeah, he learned this handshake from a native elder on reservation land at the edge of the Grand Canyon. Like, good for you, Neil. Never do this handshake ever again. Like, obviously, it's not working out for you.
Right, but they used to do that shit in, like, middle school. It's called a dirty handshake.
It's called a dirty handshake?
Yeah, I'll show you. Here.
Oh, hell no!
That's what that is.
No. He said he extends his thumb forward to feel the other.
Yeah, but that's what it's.
Like,
that's what it would feel. That's what it would feel.
Like this?
Yeah.
That's so odd to do to someone. And I guarantee you that he did not tell her that he was gonna do it, and also, like, on the way out, he didn't tell her what it was.
I'm gonna say right now that reservation land story is one of the most strangely convenient stories I've ever heard in my life.
Like, what do you mean?
Like, I was happened to be on the reservation land there, and I learned this special handshake that would, like, it's clearly, he's very into pop culture these days. Like, he's went back and forth with, I forgot the name of this rapper, but he went back and forth with him on a flat earth thing. Like, he's into so many different pop culture things. It's ridiculous to think that he doesn't know what a dirty handshake is. Especially when, I think I remember this, he had a porn star on his podcast, and they were talking about all kinds of shit. Like, he would definitely know what a dirty handshake is. And for him to do that to somebody, he definitely knows that would be interpreted as one. Especially if he's going around being like, oh, if I hug you, I might just...
Well, yeah, okay, here's the thing, like, he included this detail in his recount of the night. If he really thought it was just, like, a harmless little special handshake he learned from a native elder in the Grand Canyon, he wouldn't have put this detail here, because he realizes that this is, like, a point where she might misinterpret what he was trying to go for. Like, why would you include this if you didn't think on some level, maybe this is where the maybe this is why she was creeped out. But he doesn't explain in the rest of the writing why he puts this detail in. I think we're left to infer on our own as readers, which is kind of dirty, you would think. Also, he says, at that last meeting in my office, I apologized profusely. She accepted the apology, and I assured her that had I known she was uncomfortable, I would have apologized on the spot, ended the evening, and possibly reminded her of the other social gathering that she could attend. She nonetheless declared it her last day with only a few days left of production. So he gives the girl a dirty handshake, then she quits. Of course. Good job, Neil. He also says he apologized profusely, but, I don't know. If it were me, I wouldn't apologize unless I knew I fucked up somehow. There's some way that he screwed up, that there has to be, if it's not the handshake thing, it's something else, but, he has to have been apologizing profusely because he knows he did something wrong. He wouldn't apologize for no reason. Or, if she had suddenly been accusing him of seducing her, he would maybe fight back a little before profusely apologizing. Like, he knows he's in the wrong, is my point. I note that her final gesture to me was the offer of a hug, which I accepted as a parting friend. Aw, finally, you take her to your freaking wine and cheese night, give her a dirty handshake on the way out, and then finally, as she's quitting her job because you creep her out so much, you finally accept the hug. How heartwarming and sweet is that? Neil, you're killing me, man. Early 1980s. I entered astrophysics graduate school directly out of college in 1980. It's a grueling adventure marathon, and many people do not finish the PhD. In fact, it was not uncommon for half the admitted students to leave after 2 or 3 years, finding some other kind of work in their lives. While in graduate school, I had several girlfriends, one of whom would become my wife of 30 years, a mathematical physicist. We met in relativity class. Over this time, I had a brief relationship with a fellow astro graduate student from a more recent entering class. I remember being intimate only a few times, all at her apartment, but the chemistry wasn't there, so the relationship faded quickly. There was nothing otherwise odd or unusual about the friendship. Okay, he's just setting, the stage a little bit. He had a couple girlfriends back then, and, good old college Neil deGrasse Tyson raking in the hose. I didn't see much of her after that time. Our student offices were on different floors of the building, and we were not in the same classes. A few years later, I ran into her, pregnant, with who I think was the father by her side. That's when I had learned she dropped out of graduate school. Again, this is not itself an unusual fact, but I nonetheless wished her well in motherhood and whatever career path would follow. Alright, so he says it's not an unusual fact, but he brings it up specifically. This is important, so keep that in mind. He brings up that she dropped out of grad school. More than 30 years later, as my visibility level took another jump, I read a freshly posted blog accusing me of drugging and raping a woman I did not recognize by either photo or name. Turned out to be the same person who I dated briefly in graduate school. She had changed her name and lived an entire life, married with children, before this accusation. So, what's going on here is he's saying that it was only 30 years later that the girl accused her of, drugging and raping her. Which, fair enough. That seems like a straight story, and, maybe probably didn't do it so far, based on what he said so far. For me, what was most significant was that in this new life, long after dropping out of astrophysics graduate school, she was posting videos of colored tuning forks endowed with vibrational therapeutic energy that she channels from the orbiting planets. As a scientist, I found this odd. Pause right here. You see what he's trying to do, right? You see what Neil's trying to do here? He is trying to imply that she had gone off the deep end. So he's saying she got pregnant, changed her name, dropped out of grad school, and now she has tuning forks endowed with vibrational therapeutic energy, all this pseudoscience bullshit. And he says, as a scientist, I found this odd. Because what he's trying to imply here is that this woman used to be intelligent and smart and, on the same level of science as good old Neil deGrasse Tyson. And then she just fell off it and became a typical pseudoscience, conspiracy theorist, crazy person. And this accusation is not coming from a credible source, is what he's trying to communicate here. Which is just like a scummy way to deal with the situation, I think. Like, oh, I didn't... like, okay, someone comes out and accuses me of rape, and I'm like, yeah, but like, you posted your horoscope earlier today, you idiot. Like, you believe in horoscopes, you crazy. That's sort of what he's doing here. Like, I don't want to imply that this is, it's not like exactly the same energy. I don't think he's doing it with as much of aggression, but no reason to include this detail unless you're trying to diminuate her intelligence and make her seem like she's not entirely there or that she's not sane. Meanwhile, according to her blog post, the drug and rape allegation comes from an assumption of what happened to her during a night she cannot remember. It is as though a false memory had been implanted, which, because it never actually happened, had to be remembered as an evening she doesn't remember. Nor does she remember waking up the next morning and going to the office. I kept a record of everything she posted in case her stories morphed over time. So this is sad, which for me defies explanation. This is probably the worst part of the entire thing, like, even worse than him saying, if I hug you, I might just want more. Look at this. He says, first of all, he accuses her of making up a memory, which, you know, memory is very fallible, and yes, memories can be implanted, but if you're on fire and the press is on your ass for this shit, is this really what you're gonna say? Oh, it's just implanted memories. That's kind of disrespectful a little bit, and combined with the fact that he's talking about how she's like not much of a scientist anymore, and she has a whole new life. Like she's gone completely away from the way of science and facts, and now she's just doing all this crazy stuff and accusing guys of rape. That's sort of the narrative that Neil is pushing here. It's just like, how can you... How? If you're Neil deGrasse Tyson, you're a professional adult, you have 30 years worth of career under your belt, how do you not understand that this is not the right way to respond to this accusation? Also, he says, nor does she remember waking up the next morning to go to the office. Okay, yeah, that's kind of what the last sentence. Here's the important part. I kept a record of everything she posted in case her stories morphed over time. Okay. Okay, Neil. You kept records of everything she posted in case her stories morphed over time. What it sounds like to me is he's sort of... That's just a weird thing to say that you're doing. I mean, I guess it's okay, you're being honest, but like, you're keeping records of things she posts just in case her stories morphed over time, so you can call her out on it and say, hey, you're full of shit. Your stories contradict each other at these two moments. It's like, first of all, you yourself admitted how fallible memories were. Maybe if a small detail gets crossed up, that's kind of, just a mistake on her part. Something she was oblivious to, like how you're oblivious that you don't tell people if I hug you I might just want more, or how you're oblivious to the fact that you don't search under people's dresses for Pluto. It's just kind of underhanded. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe this is a totally reasonable thing to do. Like, I guess I would have to do the same in this situation, but like, kept a record of everything she posted in case her story marked over time. Like, I can't read that and not think, wow, this dude is really looking for any out he can possibly get. What more? I note that this allegation was used as a kind of solicitation bait by at least one journalist to bring out of the woodwork anybody who had any encounter with me that left them uncomfortable. Okay, fair note. I mean, I guess. I don't really know why you would include this. Are you implying that the future allegations aren't really as valid because they didn't come of their own volition? They were solicited by journalists? Because if so, possibly not the greatest note to make. Like, you could have easily left this detail out and it would have been fine. But now it just throws into question your motives in doing this. Okay, here's the overview. I'm the accused, so why believe anything I say? Why believe me at all? Very good question, Neil. You seem to be a pretty creepy dude. Why would I believe that you didn't sexually assault anyone? I don't know. I guess I had to really question this. That brings us back to the value of an independent investigation, which Fox, Nat Geo, the networks on which Cosmos and Star Talk air, announced they will conduct. I welcome this. Accusations can damage a reputation and a marriage, sometimes irreversibly. I see myself as a loving husband and as a public servant, a scientist and educator who serves at the will of the public. I am grateful for the support I've received from those who continue to respect and value me and my work. Respectfully submitted, Neil deGrasse Tyson, New York City. Alright, so, he sort of bookends with this whole I'm gonna welcome an investigation, which I really respect. Gotta give him credit where credit's due. But man, after reading this, my whole perception of this guy had changed. I've made fun of him on my podcast before for, repeatedly posting the same lame jokes and being a total buzzkill. I posted before New Year's, I guarantee you Neil deGrasse Tyson is going to post that January 1st is just an arbitrary point in the Earth's revolution around the sun, and like clockwork, it happened. But, he's making the lay people enjoy science, which is better work than 90% of the education system is even doing. So, I really respect what he's done for the science community, and I think he's a very respectable individual. He has such an incredible career under his belt. But after this, I don't know. He now creeps me out. And I'm a guy. Look at this. He searches, he scours, he scans the woman's entire body without asking her to try to find Pluto. He says, if I hug you, I might just want more, and then gives her a dirty handshake. He tries to attack this woman's character just for the sake of, discrediting her accusations, when really, as he said earlier, it's really, her word against his. Maybe that's, I guess if it is really her word against his, as he said earlier, it's sort of one person's word against another's, and people have to pass judgment on who's more credible than whom. I guess if you have that mentality coming in, attacking their character is sort of something you might do, or attacking their credibility, but, is this the way you want to go about it, by, making fun of the fact that she posts videos of her colored tuning forks and mentioning specifically that she dropped out of graduate school? And then, this smug, again, this is not itself an unusual fact. No, you know what you're doing. Come on, Neil. But this guy's married, maybe, here's the kicker. Here's the final sort of conclusion I have to all this. What it seems to me is that, just like any other nerd, Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't really understand how to talk to women, and luckily he's found... Well, no, that's not true. He was raking in the hose during college, evidently, so he should know how to conduct himself around women, so that's no excuse. But anyway, let me get back to what I was going to say. What I was going to say was, it seems like he's just a little bit awkward, maybe doesn't understand the implications of his actions, and he just did the wrong things at the wrong time. 2.5 screw-ups in a 30-plus year career, that's a pretty impressive record. But, and I don't think he sexually assaulted anyone. I think he just sort of did some mildly sexually inappropriate things by accident. But then he makes this Facebook post that throws into question his entire character, and paints him, he's painting himself as a very creepy and unaware. Like, he lacks so much self awareness in this. He comes across as an individual who just cannot conduct themselves around other people, which I don't think he is. So he puts in all these weird details and tries to explain himself, and he just ends up making everything look worse. I think, honestly, this Facebook post is terrible for his PR. Like, I can't imagine that his PR person read this and was like, "Yep, this is it, Chief." Like, there's just no way that, you know, I feel like maybe he just wrote this on his own and published it without anyone else looking at it, maybe even. Whatever. I really respect that he's welcoming an investigation, and I don't think he did anything with malicious intent. But, on the other hand, he is a creepo weirdo a little bit, and he really needs to just know when to shut his mouth, because in providing all these details, he just makes himself look worse than he actually is. So, yeah, that's the Neil deGrasse Tyson on being accused article. I hope you enjoyed this little amateur, really stupid analysis of it. I don't know, I just did this on a whim. But, I have about an hour worth of homework I need to get done, and then I'm gonna have to get up 7 hours later for a class. So I'm gonna cut the stream off there. Hope you guys enjoyed, and be on the lookout for future content from me, because it's coming. Trust me.
And Neil.
And Neil. Be on the lookout for future content from Neil. That's the key here. All right. Adios.